Peace. This is the enemy's public, and I am Bro.Nasir. Today's subject matter, I will be speaking about our sister, Atatiana Jefferson, who was a 28-year-old sister in her home, minding her business, playing video games with her nephew, and a concerned neighbor called the police because her door was ajar, and he was just concerned about the safety of his neighbor. A non-emergency call, and instead of the police going to the front door like they're supposed to do, if the door is ajar, why would the police walk past the front door and into the sister's yard with flashlights, prowling around the sister's property? And, the sister, in my opinion, was justified with going to her window with a firearm, seeing who's in her yard. The police were supposed to go to her front door, knock, ring the doorbell, and ask the sister, is she and her nephew okay? Yet instead, they went into the sister's yard, prowling around her yard with flashlights, trespassing on the sister's property. And when she came to the window with her firearm, rightfully so, she was supposed to be there, not the police. The police were supposed to knock on her front door. Yet when she arrived at her window, Aaron Dean, the only thing he said was, "Show me your hands," and shot and killed the sister right in front of her nephew. And this trial is finally underway. And I want to show a video clip of the situation and what's about to take place. They're going to give a little chronology of what happened. And they're going to, they're picking the jury now, actually. And hopefully this sister and her family will get some justice.
So in just a short time frame, 200 potential jurors must be whittled down to a dozen as we near the opening arguments in the trial of Aaron Dean.
The jury selection moved forward yesterday after the death of one of Dean's attorneys called that timeline into question. Dean is charged with shooting and killing Atatiana Jefferson during a welfare check in 2019. Since then, that trial has been delayed several times for various reasons.
Chris Sadeghi live this morning. Chris, the jury selection is tough, seeing that this is such a high-profile case.
Yes, Kara, the process of finding an impartial jury for this case that has received so much media attention could take all week. Despite the death of Aaron Dean's lead attorney, Jim Lane, prosecution and defense got started Monday with trying to whittle a jury pool of 200 people down to 12 jurors and 2 alternates. Each of those jurors filled out a 25-page questionnaire. Their answers will help the two sides determine whether or not they can sit on a fair jury in a trial for a former police officer. Of the 200 summoned, about half told the judge that they have seen or read about this case. Aaron Dean is the former Fort Worth police officer charged with the murder and the death of Atatiana Jefferson. Protest, media coverage, and 3 years worth of delays are why his defense team says he cannot get a fair trial in Tarrant County, and they've again requested a change of venue, but so far the judge has not granted that motion or any of the others to move the trial. The judge hopes to have a jury seated by Monday to begin testimony. However, he also said that if they're not able to find 12 from this pool of 200 summons, that they could summon another 200 to find those 12 impartial jurors. William Joy has more on how we got to this point in this case.
It's been 1,143 days since the home on East Allen Avenue was wrapped in crime scene tape.
Open the gate.
And since James Smith asked police to check on his neighbor.
They're usually home, but they never had both of the front doors open.
Aaron Dean.
It's been 1,143 days since Officer Aaron Dean killed Atatiana Jefferson.
Put your hands up! Show me your hands!
Monday, the trial for the former Fort Worth police officer is set to begin. Jefferson's neighbor, James Smith, called a non-emergency line asking police to make sure his neighbor was okay. Officer Aaron Dean arrived at the home at 2:29. Inside, Jefferson was playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew, Zion. Court documents say Jefferson heard someone creeping in her backyard, grabbed her gun, and opened the blinds.
Put your hands up! Show me your hands!
The single shot Dean fired killed Jefferson.
5 shots fired, sorry, supervisor.
People say, well, James, it's not your fault. You're not your fault. But I made a call.
Nobody looked at that video and said there's any doubt that this officer acted inappropriately.
2 days after the killing,
at approximately 6 p.m., Aaron Dean was arrested for the murder of Miss Jefferson.
No comment.
Jefferson was the 6th person Fort Worth police killed in a 5-month span of 2019.
But I'm here to let you know your city is hurting.
Frustrated and frightened community members filled council meetings.
No justice, no peace!
And filled streets. Now we're a day away from the trial that's been more than 2 years in the making.
I certainly have not been able to make sense of why she had to lose her life.
1,143 days after James Smith was worried about his neighbor. 1,143 days.
There's no erasing that.
Since Atatiana Jefferson's family saw her for the last time. In Fort Worth, I'm William Joy.
Our WFAA team is following this trial from start to finish. For any updates in the case, you can check out our website, WFAA.com, WFAA Plus, and our WFAA YouTube channel as well.
And that is how we got to this point. Now, again, the little sister, I say little sister because I'm old enough to be her father, 28 years old. She was in her home playing video games with her nephew when her next door neighbor was concerned about her well-being because her door was ajar. And he called the police. But it's not consistent with their policy to go into someone's yard. That would be considered trespassing. So the police were trespassing on Atatiana Jefferson's property because it wasn't a burglary call. It was a non-emergency. The brother didn't call 911. He called the police department. It was a non-emergency phone call that Atatiana Jefferson's neighbor made to the police. And instead of the police going to the sister's door, knocking on the door, ringing the doorbell, and asking if there's okay, and checking, doing a welfare check, the sister would be alive because the brother, her neighbor, only called the police to make sure that his neighbor was okay, not for his neighbor to be shot down through her window by the police. And this brother said that he would never call the police again, especially with the climate that we're in. It's really people don't like to call the police, understandably, because the police are not here, definitely not here to serve and protect us. And when you get a overzealous, trigger-happy, wicked person with perceived power, this is what you get. You get a murderer. That's what you get. You get a murderer who don't really care if he murders someone. Now, Atatiana Jefferson, she was 28 years old, believed she was a medical student. And she was shot and killed through her own window by a supposedly police officer, Aaron Dean. All of this because the sister's door was open and he was concerned. And this is absolutely crazy that a sister had to lose her life because someone was concerned for her. Now, the 28-year-old lived in Fort Worth. She took care of her grandparents in the home. The officers responded to what they call an open structure. If you respond to an open structure, it doesn't mean that you prowl around the sister's house. They was in the 1200 block of Allen Avenue, east of Interstate 35 West. The officer, Aaron Dean, was walking around outside of the house and had walked into the backyard. When he shot through a window of the house, the body cam footage showed it. I did a story on this when it first happened. Just before he fired his gun, he said, "Put your hands up. Show me your hands." Now, you're at this sister's home saying, "Show me your hands," when you are the one trespassing. If it's an open structure, you go to the door that's open. You don't go into the sister's yard, walking around her yard with flashlights and your gun out. You go to the door that's open. You don't go around the sister's house. That's how this incompetence happened. Because you had an overzealous, trigger-happy person who should have never been a police officer. Because when you get an open structure call, you go to the door. You walk right past the door, huh? Aaron Dean walks right past the door that's open and into the yard, thinking that he was going to find a prowler, yet he was the prowler. All he had to do, and our sister would be here today, is go to that front door, ring the doorbell or knock on it, and say, "Is everything here okay?" The sister would have said, "Yes, I live here. I take care of my grandparents here, and I have my nephew here." Yet instead, the sister gets murdered right in front of her nephew, who she was playing video games with. Now, Atatiana Jefferson's family said that she worked in human resources. She graduated 2014 from Xavier University of Louisiana with a bachelor's degree in biology. As you've seen her, she had the skeleton, and she was, I guess, showing what she was learning in school. Now, the university president, Reynold Verrett, said in a written statement, "We are deeply dismayed by the news of another African-American killed in her home by police in Fort Worth, Texas. This time, she is one of our Xavier University of Louisiana alumna. Verrett said people should expect safety when they call the police. They should. Sadly, our fathers and mothers must caution daughters and sons on their interaction with officers. Families in our community hesitate to call on our so-called protectors out of fear that they will be killed. This should not be. Fort Worth, Texas police officials claim the officer said he shot into the house after perceiving a threat. How can you perceive a threat when you shouldn't have never been in the yard in the first place? How is she a perceived threat in her own home? All you had to do, Aaron Dean, is walk to the front door, knock on the door or ring the doorbell, and you would have left because the sister would have been like, look, I'm playing games. Everything's okay here. I'm playing games with my nephew. We left the door open. Some people leave their door open. I don't, but some people do leave their door open. But the thing to do is not go into the sister's yard. You don't do that. The neighbor said he called Fort Worth non-emergency number to request a welfare check after seeing his neighbor's door open. Let's imagine. He called the non-emergency number because he's seen his neighbor's door open. And all of this happened because of that punk. Because of that incompetent, never should have been a police officer punk. And he murdered the sister. It's a damn shame that it took 3 years for a trial to be underway when the man is clearly guilty of murder. I have another video clip about this situation that I'm going to play.
In a few hours, attorneys will continue their search for jurors in the Aaron Dean murder trial. The former Fort Worth officer is charged with the death of Atatiana Jefferson in 2019. Chris Sadeghi is live in Fort Worth this morning. Chris, it's quite the process trying to dwindle down these jurors.
Yes, Kara, and of the 200 potential jurors that were summoned, 109 of them told the judge that they have seen media coverage of this case. Today, the two sides will try to determine and interview them individually to determine if that means they can still serve as a juror on an impartial jury. The return to jury selection today follows a day when the judge devoted time to address James Smith. He is the neighbor who called police asking them to do a welfare check on Atatiana Jefferson after he spotted her door standing open. Aaron Dean responded to that check. A twist of fate that ended with Jefferson dead and Dean as the first officer in Tarrant County to go on trial for murder for something they did on duty. Smith will be a witness in this trial, but he also took part in a protest outside the courthouse while holding a sign saying justice for Atatiana Jefferson. There is a gag order in this case, and the judge warned Smith he will be held in contempt of court if he takes part in any more protests. Testimony still set to begin on Monday. That is, if the two sides can find 12 impartial jurors and 2 alternates. If they cannot, another 200 potential jurors could be summoned to try and make up the jury. Kara, back to you.
The state of Texas is trying their best to not try and convict this murderer. Aaron Dean belongs in prison. Aaron Dean belonged in prison 3 years ago after shooting our sister. Now, out of 200 petite jurors, they should be able to find the 12 jurors and the alternates to have this trial go underway. Now, if they can't find 12 jurors and 2 alternates out of the 200, they're going to have to go and do another 200 just to find the jury for this trial. Meanwhile, Aaron Dean walks around here free after murdering a sister in her own home. After someone who was concerned for her called someone who was supposed to protect and served, supposed to do it, but we all know the reality of that when it comes to us. Aaron Dean's a murderer. He should be in prison. And that's all to it. This is The Enemy's Public. I am Bro.Nasir. Like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.